Hello and welcome to this Thursday edition of the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Carrie Hazley. Today is Thursday, April 16th, 2020. A couple of ways on your screen that you can get a hold of us if you're looking for weather information. The first, the Alaska Weather Information Line, 1-800-472-0391. You can always find us on the web at weather.gov/Alaska. And then lastly, you can always email me, carrie.hazley@noaa.gov. Well, it is April, and that means springtime and temperatures warming up. That also means that it's about time for all of the rivers across Alaska to start breaking up. So first off, we're going to kick off the show by sending things over to Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center hydrologist Crane Johnson.
And now, your 2020 Alaska River Watch update.
Good evening, this is Crane Johnson with your April 16th, 2020 Alaska River Breakup Outlook. Here we have a quick view of the Kuskokwim River in 2017 from Antioch looking upstream. The three main components we look at for breakup are snowpack conditions throughout the state, river ice conditions, and then temperatures through the months of April and May. The snowpack map on the left shows above average snowpack throughout the state of Alaska, with the upper Kuskokwim Basin being well above average, and then above average snowpacks through the middle Tanana, upper Tanana, middle Yukon, lower Yukon basins, and the AKwx Basin has above average snowpack as well, but not as much snow as last year in 2019 in the AKwx Basin. Across the North Slope, we expect a near normal snowpack. To the right, we can see snowpack in the Yukon Territory, and again, similar to Alaska, the upper Yukon is well above average snowpack. The second component are river ice thicknesses throughout the state. Measurements indicate that river ice conditions are normal to slightly thicker than normal, and this matches what we see when we look at freezing degree days throughout the state. Shades of blue or anything above 100% indicates a cooler than normal winter when measured through freezing degree days, and indicates thicker than normal ice likely. One thing to really point out for 2020 is that ice conditions are different than the last 6 years. The map in the upper left is 2018 and shows warmer shades of orange, which corresponded to thinner than normal ice. And this was the case from 2014 all the way up through 2019. We had to go back to 2013, 12, and 9 to have similar snow and ice conditions as this year. 2013 and 2009 had significant ice jam flooding, and 2012, due to a gradual warm-up, didn't have any ice jam flooding. The next component are air temperatures. These are the temperatures for the next 5 days, April 15th through the 20th, and we can expect above normal temperatures throughout the mainland Alaska and into the Yukon Territory. And then if we look a little further out with the CPC 6 to 10 day guidance, we can see equal chances of above or below normal temperatures throughout the middle of Alaska, and then a chance of below normal temperatures across the North Slope, and then chances of slight chances of above normal temperatures through southern Alaska and the Bethel area. When we combine both the snowpack, the river ice conditions, and then the current temperature outlooks, we try to classify the breakup into thermal or dynamic, and you can see from the arrow here on the left, 2020 we definitely feel is trending towards a dynamic breakup. And that's the case where the river breaks up, there's hard ice in place, and it'll break up from the upstream to downstream direction with ice jams possible. And these are the years when we do see ice jam flooding. Thermal breakups are what we've seen the last 5 or 6 years, and that's where the ice just rots in place. And that would be typical for most major rivers from 2014 through last year. So the one thing we would like people to do is just, this is the time of year to get prepared. Breakup we expect to be dynamic, and so we will see ice jams form. As far as breakup timing goes, the upper Yukon usually breaks up around the 3rd of May in Eagle and Dawson, and then it breaks up for about the next 2 weeks, breaking up in the lower Yukon around the 20th of May. The Kuskokwim River usually breaks up. Nikolai breaks up first on the 22nd of April on average, and then McGrath and Sleetmead break up around the 4th of May, with Bethel around the 9th of May. We expect throughout the state close to normal breakup timing in the upper Yukon, and then the rest of the state slightly early, trending to 3 to 5 days early in the southwest portions, the lower YK Delta. As far as the flood potential around the state, it's generally above average. The one exception would be the North Slope, with just an average flood potential this year for ice jam or snowmelt flooding. And then the Chena River, due to above average snowpack, has an above average chance of snowmelt flooding upstream of the Moose Creek Dam. This is our village flood potential map published on April 14th, and we can see that generally throughout the Yukon and the Kuskokwim rivers, there's a low to moderate flood risk for most communities, and that's based on their historical likelihood of flooding. On the Yukon, a similar trend. The one community that has a moderate to high would be Circle, and that's because it has it's always has a higher chance of flooding just due to where it's situated. I always want to remind people that this is the time of year to think twice before you head out on the ice. Many of the ice roads are closed, and so it's something to be aware of. This is our river ice status map from yesterday, April 15th, and we can see that throughout the state, all our rivers are still frozen. We expect to launch our Riverwatch mission with our partners over at the state the first week of May, and we'll be out flying rivers for breakup. This year, of all years, we would like to heavily encourage data sharing, information sharing. You can visit our website for the latest information. That's www.weather.gov/APRFC.
Thank you, Crane. Now let's take a look at the weather across the state. We're going to start by taking a look at the warning that happens to be out. We have a winter storm warning valid until 4 p.m. on Friday. It includes areas north of Noatak, and then it also includes coastal areas such as Point Hope and Shishmaref. We're looking for heavy snow in those particular areas. 5 to 8 inches of snow lingering into the day tomorrow. No other advisories, watches, or warnings currently in effect across the state. As far as the weather goes, we do have a very active pattern out right now. Area of low pressure in the North Pacific, just to the south of the Aleutian chain, and a frontal boundary associated with that, extending up into the Bering Sea, also out into the eastern part of the Aleutians now, where we are seeing quite a bit in the way of rainfall. Also stretching up along the west coast now. We do have rain all the way up over the YK Delta and then into the Seward Peninsula area. It's not until you get to the Kotzebue Sound area that you really have that wintry weather just starting to push its way in. We also have rain down over the Panhandle and some snow showers through a good portion of the eastern interior today. Overnight tonight, we will see a lot of the stuff that's lingering in the eastern interior start to move out. We also see that rain shower activity down over the Panhandle slowly move out, and then we'll see some fog start to develop along the Gulf coastal areas as that weather starts to improve there. We continue to see showers along all of the Aleutians, rain up along the west coast, and then that snow really moves into the Kotzebue Sound area through the overnight hours. Into the day on Friday, that frontal boundary really makes its way into the western part of the state. We'll continue to see rain all along the coast, but we're also going to see rain start to spread into the western and central interior through the day on Friday. That other frontal boundary pushes its way towards the Arctic coast, so that snow that's triggering that winter storm warning is going to continue to linger through the day on Friday in the Noatak area, then coastal areas such as Shishmaref and Point Hope, but also pushing snow up along the Arctic coast, impacting Utqiagvik and all the way over towards the Alcan border for snow there. The Panhandle, though, we should see fog in the morning, but it should end up being a pretty nice day by the time we get into the afternoon hours. All of the precipitation impacting them now will have moved out. And into the day on Saturday, high pressure really starts to push its way into the southern part of the state. This is good news because it is going to bring warmer temperatures to a lot of places, especially down over the Panhandle, where they should see sunny skies with this high pressure. Low low pressure and a frontal boundary out along the west coast, however, is going to keep rain in the places where we just keep seeing rain right now, and also going to see a mix of precipitation through a good portion of the northern interior. So rain from kind of Galena southward, mostly just in the form of showers. Once you get north of that, though, by Saturday, we're really just going to be seeing kind of mixed precip or snow up through the Brooks Range, and then also scattered showers associated with a frontal boundary and low pressure out along the Aleutians and over much of the Bering Sea. So as far as temperatures go, let's start by taking a look at what low temperatures are going to look like on Friday afternoon. So as far as low temperatures go, we're going to see a lot of places above freezing when we start our day out on Friday. Bristol Bay, you're going to have 40 degrees. To kick off the day at King Salmon over in Dillingham, 40 degrees there as well. It'll be up over the Arctic coast where we see continued cold temperatures, 2 at AKwx, 13 over in Barter Island, South Central Alaska, temperatures hovering right around freezing. And then Friday morning, lows down over the Panhandle into the 40s. We will see quite a bit in the way of rebounding temperatures on Friday. The Panhandle is going to have places approaching 50 for most of their highs Friday afternoon. We'll also see some upper 40s for parts of the interior. Fort Yukon 47 for a high on Friday, 45 in Fairbanks, 54 for a high temperature on Friday down around King Salmon. And then into Saturday morning, we do see some negative digits up along the Arctic coast. We also see 40s for lows down over the Panhandle and temperatures just above freezing for a good portion of most of mainland Alaska. And quite a bit in the way of warming temperatures as we get into Saturday. The Panhandle, you could see some temperatures start to flirt with 60, but temperatures definitely in the 50s. Also a few 50s, upper 40s, and a good portion of mainland Alaska for the highs on Saturday.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And moving on to aviation now, let's start by taking a look at the flying conditions for Friday morning, where we do see widespread IFR conditions over a good portion of the western part of the state, including Kotzebue Sound, the Norton Sound area over towards St. Lawrence Island, widespread IFR. That also stretches down into the YK Delta tomorrow morning, Bethel IFR conditions, and then IFR all along the Aleutians, the Gulf Coast, and parts of the southern Panhandle. Also going to kick off the day tomorrow with some IFR conditions over the Cook Inlet area with some fog in the areas there around the coast. We will see improvement in the Cook Inlet area tomorrow, where all of that IFR should go to VFR, but a lot of the other places where we start the day with IFR are going to actually stay down for most of the day. IFR conditions moving their way from west to east over parts of the interior, impacting more of the Brooks Range as we get into Friday, and we also see some IFR conditions move into the eastern part of the Kenai Peninsula by Friday afternoon. That sticks around through Saturday morning, where we see more IFR conditions pushing their way up over the southern part of the state. Marginal VFR conditions return Saturday morning to most of south central Alaska and all along the Alaska Range, and we keep widespread IFR from the Dillingham area all the way up to the Brooks Range and then all the way over to the east to the Alcan border Saturday morning. Some improvement Saturday afternoon, where we will see some VFR conditions in places like the Tanana Valley and the Copper River Valley, but IFR conditions do persist over towards Galena and then further north around the Brooks Range, also out along the Aleutians, over the Bering and parts of southwestern Alaska and the Gulf. As far as the passes go for Friday, Anatuvik and Adigan Pass, you're going to start the day and stay at IFR conditions through the day on Friday down to the Alaska Range passes now. We're going to see some improvement. We'll start the day at both Lake Clark and Merrill at IFR. We should see them improve to marginal VFR conditions by the time we get into the afternoon hours. Same is true for Rainy Pass, just a little bit of improvement today, but still staying down. Windy Pass, marginal VFR for the day on Friday. Same is true for Isabel Pass. And then over towards Mentasta Pass, getting further east now, marginal VFR to start the day, but improving to about VFR conditions by the time we get into the afternoon hours. Same is true for Tanita, marginal VFR, improving to VFR conditions, and then finally down to Portage Pass, marginal VFR conditions for the day on Friday. Into the Panhandle, Chukut, and White, VFR conditions should actually be a good day down there, where we should see some pretty good high skies and a good day for flying. As far as freezing levels go, we actually see quite a bit of warm air that's pushed its way up over a lot of mainland Alaska. That 8,000-foot freezing line goes right over Kodiak Island and almost makes it to the southern end of the Kenai Peninsula. 6,000 foot covers a good portion of the southern part of the state. All of the Panhandle is right around that 6,000-foot freezing line. And then south central Alaska, the Kenai Peninsula, 6,000 feet for the freezing level. Arcs a bit north, goes up towards McGrath, and then out over the YK Delta for 6,000 feet. 4,000 feet freezing level is going to be north of the Fairbanks area and that surface line, all the way up over the Brooks Range. As far as icing goes, we do have considerable areas of isolated moderate ice forecasted tomorrow. Heights on those are going to vary. Keep in mind we've got those really high freezing levels in the southern part of the area of concern here, so we're going to look for higher heights as we get further south, Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula, below about 15,000 feet for the heights on the icing. Occasional moderate for those particular areas. Also looking for some occasional moderate ice out along the western part of the state, including the Nome area stretching out across Norton Sound and over towards St. Lawrence Island. Because the freezing levels are a bit higher, we'll look for the icing to be just a little bit lower, so about 12,000 feet for the tops on that. And then icing below 12,000 feet over much of the interior, although that should be more in the form of isolated moderate ice tomorrow, also out over a good portion of the Aleutian chain. We'll look for things to be in pretty good shape, though, down over the Panhandle. As far as turbulence goes, we'll look for a widespread area of occasional moderate turbulence below 4,000 feet over the southwestern part of mainland Alaska, and that stretches out along parts of the Alaska Range. And then as far as our upper level winds go, here's a look at the jet stream. It stretches right across the middle part of the state as we go through Friday morning. Also a nose of the jet poking up over parts of the Aleutians and then over towards St. Paul Island. Moving down to 9,000 feet, we see pretty strong winds over a good portion of the southwestern part of the state.
Hey there, friends. I am Trace. Let's stargaze together. After this episode, you'll be able to find Arcturus and Spica, and we'll slide right into the constellation Boötes DMs on the way. So this will be your night sky this week, looking east. Start with the Big Dipper and draw an imaginary arc through the handle of the large saucepan in the sky, and you're going to run right into the bright orange star of Arcturus. The mnemonic device is to follow the arc to Arcturus. Along the way to Ol Arky, we bisected Boötes the herdsman, which you can see here. If you keep going along a line from Arcturus, you're going to see a bright blue star. That is Spica. Spica is part of the constellation Virgo and is one of the brightest stars in the night sky. So impress your friends with your new star-hopping knowledge while we all keep looking up.
Ever been to the beach and noticed litter like plastic bottles or foam takeout containers on the sand? Or maybe you've been to a river or bay where there's a bag or a car tire stuck in the mud on the shore, or a bunch of deflated balloons that say happy birthday floating in the water? All of that junk in the water or on the shoreline is considered marine debris. It's anything solid and man-made in the ocean or Great Lakes that is not supposed to be there. And anything people use every day can become marine debris if they don't dispose of it properly. And I mean anything. The most common items we find when we do shoreline cleanups are plastics. But we also find rubber, cloth, glass, metal, and paper litter. Sometimes the debris is so tiny, like a plastic microbead from your face wash, that you can barely see it in the water. Marine debris is more than just trash in the ocean. Sometimes fishers lose their gear like fishing traps, nets, or fishing line, and it continues to drift through the water, catching animals for a long time. We call that derelict fishing gear, and it's marine debris. Have you ever seen an old boat left behind on a shoreline? Abandoned and derelict vessels are also marine debris. So let's review. Anything we use every day can become marine debris if we don't dispose of it properly or if it goes into the water by accident. Marine debris can be very small or can be very big, and anything in between. But most importantly, marine debris is one of the biggest pollution problems facing the world's oceans and waterways today.
How does marine debris impact the ocean, animals, and me? Would you want to swim in a beach littered with trash? Of course not. And the animals who live in the ocean don't either. The difference is, they don't have a choice. Marine species often get tangled in debris, from fishing nets to six-pack rings. If they get caught, they could get injured or even die. And even if they don't get entangled, many animals mistake plastic debris for food and eat it. This fills their stomach with junk they can't digest. Debris can also damage important habitats, like coral reefs, by breaking or smothering them. Corals serve as the base of the marine ecosystem, and impacts here can be felt all the way to you and me. Plus, plastics have harmful chemicals in them. Fish eat plastic, we eat fish. The question is, can those chemicals harm us? Marine debris also hurts the economy. It costs a lot of money to clean up, and people don't want to go to dirty beaches. Boats and ships could run into large pieces of debris too, or get their propellers tangled. We need the ocean and everything in it, and the ocean needs us to keep it free of debris. What can we do about marine debris?
A lot of the trash that's in our ocean is plastic.
And that marine debris is hurting our environment, economy, and health.
The problem will only get worse.
Unless we change the way we consume and dispose of products. There are solutions.
And together, we can prevent litter from ending up in the ocean. Some people might say,
Well, I'm just one person, so I can't make a difference.
but that's just not true.
If each person who creates trash, and that's just about everyone, took action, it would add up to a whole lot of change.
So what can we do?
Well, the ultimate solution is prevention. And we need to keep that as our highest priority.
We can reduce, reuse, and recycle to keep debris out of the ocean in the first place.
You can bring your own shopping bag, drink out of a reusable bottle, and participate in things like a shoreline cleanup.
Join a group cleaning up the beach, or grab some friends and clean up your street. It's easy.
Be more conscious of how many disposable plastic items you're using. And if you do,
Where are you putting it? In the trash can? Whoops. Or in the recycling bin?
so here's the challenge. The next time you finish using a throwaway item, a bag, a bottle, or utensil, answer the question, where is this going? Because ultimately, when you throw stuff away, there really is no away. It has to go somewhere.
So keep asking yourself this important question.
How will you keep your trash from becoming marine debris?
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back now. Let's take a look at marine weather conditions across the state of Alaska. First up, a look at the sea ice edge. So over the last 24 hours, we've had very persistent southerly winds that have helped to push that sea ice edge back. In most places, it's retreated between 5 and 10 miles. We're going to continue to see those conditions as we go through the next couple of days with southerly winds and a continued north movement of the sea ice edge. Also going to continue to see sea ice pulling away from north-facing coasts. As far as winds and waves go, let's take a look down over the panhandle. First, for the inside waters, we do see winds ranging from 10 knots to about 15 knots in the southern part of the panhandle and seas 2 to 3 feet. Out along the coastline, winds pick up just a little bit, 10 to 20, and then seas up just a little bit there as well, 4 to 7 feet there. Not much change as we go into the day on Friday, although winds in some of the interior passages do shift directions. We go from having a northerly wind through many of the interior passages to a wind out of the south, but still below 15 knots and not impacting the sea height there at all. Into south central Alaska now for Friday, we do see winds out of the northeast in the north part of Cook Inlet with winds or waves in open water there at about 2 feet. For the southern end of Cook Inlet on Friday, winds out of the east, where we're looking for them to be as high as 25 knots, and they're around Augustine Volcano for waves to be up to about 7 feet. Around the Horn there or into the North Gulf of Alaska, variable wind direction, although winds staying at about 10 knots, and then seas ranging from 4 to 5 feet. For Saturday, Friday, some improvement there at the opening of Cook Inlet, where we see the winds down around Augustine drop down to about 20 knots and then seas subside a little bit to 5. Over around into the Gulf there, winds stay variable in direction again, but we are going to look for them to be at about 10 knots with seas at 5 to 6 feet. For Friday along the Alaska Peninsula, we're starting to see the winds and the waves increase a bit, primarily out of the southeast through most of these areas. There's actually a gale warning out right now over Bristol Bay, where we've got winds forecast to be up to about 35 knots for the day on Friday, seas up to 6 feet. Those drop off just a little bit as you get a bit further to the west, 30 feet just north of Cold Bay. 30 knots with seas up to about 7 feet just north of Cold Bay, and also pretty strong waves and winds on the Pacific side there as well, south of Sand Point. Winds out of the southeast at 30 knots with seas up to 12 feet for Friday. A little bit of improvement as we go into the day on Saturday, particularly over Bristol Bay, where we do see the winds drop from that 35 and the gale warning criteria all the way down to 15, and seas at about 5 feet there. Coming around a bit further south, Cold Bay, that just area on the Pacific side, we're looking for 20 knots and 14 feet seas over towards Kodiak Island there. Winds out of the southeast, 15 knots and 8-foot seas there. We do see substantial increases in the wave height as we go further out the Aleutian chain. So for Friday on the Pacific side, we're looking for seas to range between 15 and 17 feet for the central part of the Aleutians. Winds straight out of the south between 20 and 25 knots for most of that area. Some improvement as we go into the day on Saturday. We keep that southerly flow. That's what's really going to help us with that sea ice edge as we get further north into the Bering. Winds between 15 and 20 knots most places, just north of Unalaska 25. Out towards Shemia, we actually see a bit more of an increase in the winds, 30 knots out there, and that's where we start to see some of the higher wave heights than 14 feet in that particular area. Coming up the west coast now for Friday, along the ice edge, we'll look for winds out of the southeast to be at about 30 knots, and then in open water, waves up to about 7 feet in most places. Winds over the ice out of the southeast at 20 knots. Some improvement as we go into the day on Saturday. We keep that southeasterly wind through the entire area. And then we see seas primarily around 4 feet along that ice edge. Finally, up over the Arctic now, we see winds and waves. Waves aren't a concern because we've got ice, but winds primarily out of the east, ranging from 15 to 25 knots. And then as we get around on the western side of the coast there, 30 to 35 knots. And as far as Saturday goes, we continue to see a continuation of those conditions. Winds out of the northeast up to about 30 knots.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.